Okay, we're on the air now. Welcome back. My name is Dux. I'm here with JCV, and today we're here to chat with DeVore, also known as PonyDonn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, it's good. It's good to talk about ponies again. It's been a while for me.
So, who are you, and what do you do?
Well, I'm a musician, a music producer, audio engineer, and I do a lot of different things. I worked in recording studios for a lot of years in my 20s and 30s, and owned a recording studio for a few years, and was in the recording industry for a long time. And then I found ponies one day, My Little Pony, and became completely addicted to it back in 2011. And it really kind of like at the age of 38, it was like, what are you doing, man? This is a kid's show, but I loved it so much. And then I found the brony fandom and all this music and stuff, and I thought, let's play around with this. This looks like a lot of fun. I think I can get into this, and it really changed my life. And yeah, so now like 12 years later, whatever, 12, 13 years later, you guys are asking me about My Little Pony, and I think it's awesome. So, but now, I've lived in a lot of different places across the country and worked in the music business and played in bands and things like that. So, kind of music has been my whole life since I was a young child. And yeah, it's just always been part of me. But playing and performing for like the cons and things that we've done over the years has been the most fun I've ever had playing music by far. Because there's a lot of stress involved in the music industry, and a lot of things are expensive and costly. And when you're doing something for a fandom, it's more like you're doing this for fun, and it
So
allows
it
for
kind of takes a
freedom
lot
of.
of the. I was gonna say it takes a lot of the stresses and pressures off, that you might usually have.
Yeah, exactly. We did a lot of volunteer work for the conventions and stuff. I got involved with running sound and audio and video for Everfree Northwest early on, and and wanted to be able to use my skills and expertise in that world to help get the con started. And so that's kind of how I got into the fandom, back
That's
in
awesome.
2011, 2012. Yeah. And yeah, now I play music online quite a bit. I do live stream shows in Second Life, and I've released a couple albums in the last few years that are non-pony, electronic music, experimental, kind of techno and synth wave and trance music and things like that. But yeah, I've done a lot of different styles of music over the years. I play guitar and sing and write and do a lot of programming and sequencing of for music production. And I just that's all I really know how to do these days. Just try to keep making music and try to keep making money at that. But
That's really cool. You're already touching on a lot of points that we wanted to ask specific questions about. So,
yeah, shoot,
first
go ahead.
things first, the name DeVore. I was wondering what the name, what the origin is of your name.
Yeah, my family is a French ancestry, I believe. Most of my adopted family, that is. It's so when I was born, I was adopted just after a couple of days and into the DeVore family, and yeah, never really knew who I was as far as like my own ancestry until later in life. But yeah, it's a French name. So
Cool.
Okay. Well, and you were saying too that Dux, you said that you were wondering if it was perhaps from kind of where you're from because or you see a lot of names that kind of start with "de" and they um might be of like Dutch origin. So you know,
Yeah, that happens from time to time, but "de" is also French, so I didn't consider that, but very interesting.
yeah, at least
yeah.
that's what my family's told me.
Yeah, like secretly we're actually Dutch. Like this was we just told you French because I don't know we wanted to see if we want to try escargot one time. Um, so and you had talked a bit about your musical background. Like
hmm
were there any particular bands or artists that you were like particularly inspired by, or was it like you had a very musical family and that's how you kind of got into it, or?
Yeah, my parents were really supportive of me learning music at a very young age. They bought me a guitar at 9 years old, and I was taking guitar lessons and learning music pretty young. And I was always into tape machines and synthesizers and drum machines and all this technology that was coming out in the 80s. And by the way, I was born in
That's really cool.
1973. I'm 51 now, so I've got a lot of experience points out here. So.
That's awesome.
And so yeah, I've always like grew up with musical instruments and learning music, and then in college I studied audio recording and production, and class piano and theory and all that kind of stuff, and just made that my career. No, I like to listen to a lot of when I was a kid, I listened to a lot of metal, techno, early rap, pop music, everything that was on the radio at the time. Um, I got into metal pretty heavy for a while in my high school years, and was really into Metallica and Slayer and bands like
Mhm.
that of that era, and that was a big influence for a while. In the '90s, it was more about like I was exploring more electronic music and bands like the Orb, Orbital, um, Aphex Twin, things like that were just kind of completely different than anything you heard on the radio. And it was like, oh, this is really interesting stuff. So that was a big influence on me. And then, yeah, working in the studio for years, I worked with a lot of jazz groups and orchestras and choirs and a lot of different stuff. And so that was a big influence as well. And just learning all these different genres and styles of music that come in and out of studios for various projects. It wasn't just rock bands. It wasn't just hip hop or
Mhm.
something. It was every style of music around the world. I got to work with and record albums for. So that had a big influence on me too. So
That's awesome. Yeah, you got, a bunch of different, influences from your work and what you personally liked, or at least, kind of before you got into that stuff as well. And I was wondering too, I know you were saying that you had got into electronic music. Was it like you would go to, say, raves, or, something where people would just be spinning records, or was it at the time where like the internet, I know that internet was like at its infancy at that point, and there were like
mhm.
mod sites, or stuff like that, where you could input and download stuff into a tracker and play music that way?
No, we were
Was there
finding
kind
just like tapes and CDs or stuff that was on like alternative radio stations, college radio stations. You'd find things like
Oh, okay.
that, and find like
Hmm.
sort of underground electronic music and kind of non. You'd have to search it out, in record stores and
Right.
things at the time because we didn't have streaming. We didn't have all. It was just tapes, CDs, and vinyl back then. So,
Right,
yeah, it
right.
was
You knew a
just
friend
sharing
who.
music with your friends and stuff, and
Mhm.
discovering new stuff just through your friends and through, exploring different
Yeah.
stores. Really, it took a lot of like discovery. I remember the Art of Noise is a really influential band for me. I like the music of the Art of Noise, and when they came out in like 1983, 84, and I was 10 years old, I was breakdancing to that music. And all kinds of other like hip hop and rap and stuff, the Beat Street soundtrack and things like that. All these hip hop movies were coming out around that time, and I was super into techno and dancing and hip hop, and so even now I still really enjoy that kind of music, and it was a really big influence on me. So everything from like electronic music to metal to pop to jazz, or I mean every style really. I'm kind of a fan of, or has some sort of influence on me. Except polka. I don't think polka.
Not too fond of polka.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, no, I get you.
if there's a tuba
Oh,
in the band, I'm probably not gonna turn it up.
yeah, I'm checking. And then that makes me that reminds me, there was almost like a big kind of polka thing for a while, that while there in the pony fandom. Like people really liked Weird Al, and like I'm a Tube Link
Yeah, I
or
think it was the Weird
whatever, they
Al
were doing that.
influence.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely the Weird
and
Al
James did a
thing.
couple
Yeah, the
things. Yeah,
Paris polka
yeah.
song. Yeah.
Yep, that too. So that's kind of funny that you say that. So, and then, all right, and then were you perhaps involved in, say, any fandoms or communities before MLP? Because, like, I know, or
In
I've seen
what?
that, like, a
You
lot of
cut out for a second
artists.
there.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, were there any kinds of fandoms or communities that you were into before MLP? Like, I know that a lot of artists, and by like drawing artists, they were furries, and that's how they were like,
Hmm.
oh, I guess I'll try this out too. Or were,
Hmm.
maybe I know Adventure Time, regular show were big back then, or was it,
Hmm.
or not, or was like kind of MLP the kind of the big, or the first big fandom that you really um, you know, took interest in, I should say.
Well, yeah, that was really the first one that I was active in. I had a lot of, stuff that over the years, different things like Star Wars was like kind of the big thing throughout my whole life. I saw Star Wars when it was in the theater in 1978, when I was a kid, and it changed my life. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And so my whole life was, being a Star Wars fan. And that's a tough thing to do these days right now, but we won't get too deep into that. But that was like the closest thing. That was like the closest thing to like a fandom that I think. But I was never really a part of it. I never went to Star Wars Celebration or anything like that. I was just a fan of it, and collected the toys and well into my 30s and had like this big Star Wars collection. And yeah, but Ponies was the first time that when MLP came along, it was like, oh, there's a local community of people you can go hang out with and through Meetup is the way I found it. It was through meetup.com. And yeah, just started going to these meetups and hanging out and meeting people and then got involved with the con. So that, yeah, MLP I would say would be the first fandom I got involved with. But I was already a Star Wars fan and, a fan of furry culture, I guess you could say. And yeah, so there was, I'm not sure what it was about My Little Pony that inspired me to actually get out of the house and go hang out with other people. But yeah, I would say that would be the first time for me at 38 years old. I was like, yeah, let's go make some cartoon friends here.
That's awesome.
I think it was because it was about friendship. The whole thing was based around friendship and all these sort of positive
Makes sense.
messages, generosity and kindness and loyalty and all that. And I was like, these are amazing characters, and the message that they're trying to put out in the show is a really positive thing, and it just makes you feel good. I mean, for me, when I started watching the show, I was like, why am I crying at the end of this show? I just feel this immense welling up of tears and joy and love, and I'm like, what is this show? This is like a drug, man. What the heck is going on here? And so I just kept watching it.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more about when exactly you started watching MLP. Like, when did you pick up the first episode, and
Yeah, it
what
was
happened
between
then?
season one. Yeah, between season one and season two, there was an article on Wired magazine, and it was an interview with Lauren Faust and Sethisto from Equestria Daily, and it had some article about the brony fandom had just blown up after the first season. It came out of 4chan, and it was like all these memes were coming out, and I was like, what is this thing? And so I just started watching the show and went, oh, this is interesting. I think what was the first episode? I think Bridal Gossip might have been the first one that I watched. And then I was just like, oh, I'll just watch another one and another one. And then I started from the very beginning, was like, oh, this is amazing. And then by season two, we were watching it together online on live streams and stuff. And you'd be there with hundreds of people watching episodes for the first time together. That was pretty cool. And yeah, and then the meetup thing happened, and then started doing more real life things and conventions and all that. But yeah, it was early on. So after season one and the break between 1 and 2 is when I found it. So
Yeah, next question. Probably the most important question. Who is your favorite pony?
oh, that's easy. That's an easy one. The yellow one. Fluttershy, of course.
Fluttershy.
But sometimes it's Twilight, and sometimes it's Rarity, but it's mostly Fluttershy. It's you got to have a tier list, right? So it just depends on the episode, I think. And,
The episode of the day.
yeah, the episode of the day or the week. And so but consistently, I think it's always been Fluttershy. I think I was immediately just like the one that I was just like had the most reaction to because of her shyness and kindness and the way she was with animals. And I was like, oh, that is the cutest character I've ever seen in my life. And it just gives you this feeling of like, oh, I just want to hug her. And yeah, so I think she's always been my favorite.
Absolutely. And I do remember that you have at least one song about Fluttershy. She Can Fly, if I believe.
She Can Fly. And yeah, about the episode Hurricane Fluttershy. She's also probably the most sampled voice that I've used in some of my other songs. So yeah, she's in a lot of my stuff.
Cool.
That's great. And so I also wanted to ask too, there's a pony on your album called A Year in Equestria.
Yeah,
I just want to ask, is that your own OC slash, I
yeah,
mean, I don't know if pony song
yeah.
is
That
the right word
is.
to say.
Yeah,
Okay, got
that was my character design back in the day. Yeah, when it was just the simple, kind of flash style
yeah, pony
animation.
creator.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. OC creator. Yeah, and
okay,
in Second Life too, I have a character that matches that as well. Sometimes I'll perform for bronies over there
that is
too.
sick.
Yeah, so
Respect.
get the 3D version. Yeah.
hmm do you remember how you kind of came up with them, or were you like just kind of messing around in the thing and you just like trying to make things like, oh, this looks good?
Yeah, it was just kind of it was kind of a take on a male version of Fluttershy in a way. It's like, well, if she's got pink hair, the
Hmm.
male would have blue hair. Um,
Hmm.
and so it was, yeah, it was like almost like a gender flip kind of thing.
Gotcha. I
Was
like
that?
it. Huh.
Do we, do
And
you,
then you had also mentioned a bit earlier that you were 38 at the time of
Hmm.
when you joined the fandom and stuff like that. And, many of your peers were, kind of in high school or college age,
Yeah,
whether they were
yeah.
just, people you met or making music or otherwise. And, how was that kind of coming from a bit of like a different perspective or something like that? How, speak to that a
Yeah,
little
because
bit.
we're different generations, right? I'm a Gen X, I'm a Generation X, and they were mostly millennials, and at the
Hmm.
time, and so, but it's funny because I was into the same things they were into. I listened to the same kind of music they listened to. I watched the same shows that they listened to, and so the things that younger people were interested in, I was more interested in than what my own age group or people older than me were interested in. So I kind of fit in with that group a little bit better. And which is funny because earlier in life, I was always hanging out with older people. And I was always the youngest guy in the group. But then when I was in the Brony fandom, it was like I'm the elder of the group now. And
That's
so
cool, like a flip in a sense there.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a real flip at that time. And of course, I always looked really young. I never looked my own age. Even now, I don't look 51 by most people's standards. So at the time, I looked maybe 30 years old. But yeah, I felt like I just connected like better with some of the younger generation than I did with my own.
That's cool.
So
That's
that wasn't
awesome.
really, it was sometimes annoying because they were more into video games and devices and
Mm,
their Game Boys and stuff like that, and I wasn't really into that kind of stuff. I kind of grown out of video games at that point, and so I think that was kind of the big difference. Was like they were more into social media and games, and I was more into like you know art, music, creativity, and all that kind of stuff. But
gotcha. I was gonna say there's like it's not like I'm going around looking this stuff up, but like I saw that JB, he was also in the older age range when he got into pony.
oh, was he?
And this
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I was
I didn't
reading
know that.
somewhere, I don't remember where it was, but he was saying that he had been a part of a band and had been before getting into Pony, he had like toured around and played around Europe and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
then he saw Pony, he got into Pony and made a bunch of synth tracks and stuff like that. So I mean, but I can't think of any I mean, like I said, I don't exactly go looking
That
up like,
kind of,
oh,
yeah,
oh,
listening to his music, that makes sense because his stuff when it first came out was like really kind of pro sounding, trance music and really well produced. And it wasn't like a beginner on Fruity Loops or something. It's like this guy knew what he was doing. This guy's a producer. And so, yeah, you can kind
right,
of
right.
hear that in some people's music that some of them are pro and some of them are, just learning. And you can hear it in the
Hmm.
quality of their music. And JB is one of those. They're just like, oh, this guy's pro, or like the Living Tombstone. This is like they do this for a living.
Hmm. So, what inspired you to start making pony songs in the first place? Because I saw that like on your Bandcamp that you have some they have an album before pony songs and you started doing pony songs. So
Right.
what was the inspiration?
Well, just listening to other Brony musicians that were coming out, that first wave of Brony musicians that had come out were making such
Mhm.
fun stuff. I was like, I want to make something too. Being a producer and musician and all that, I was like, I can do this. I'm going to make some fun stuff. And so I produced my first song, Twilight's Sparkle, and spent months working on that and tried to make it this sort of like epic, nostalgic, um, orchestral, lush production, and was really happy with it. And then I think one of the Bronies for Good album projects. It was like a charity project. They asked me if I could submit some songs for their album compilation. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I was encouraged to start making more music. So I did some orchestral stuff. I did some electronic music, and then basically just got addicted to it. Really, you start submitting your music to like Equestria Daily, and suddenly out of nowhere you get like 1,000 people that are like, hey, you're great. And you're like, okay, I'll make some more.
It's such a crazy boost of exposure.
I would just watch an episode. I would sit with my guitar sometimes and watch an episode and just start playing my guitar randomly. Whatever came out would be like sometimes the song that came out, whether it was like She Can Fly or Heart of Fire about Rarity and Spike. They were like, if an episode hit me at like an emotional level really deeply, I was like, oh, I got to write a song about this. This is good. Or a particular character like Treesy, like Tree Hugger. That's a fun one to write a song about. Or going camping and being like, oh, let's write about ponies going camping, because they did that a lot on the show. They always were going out to, the forest and doing camping vacations and stuff. And so there's all kinds of like things you can draw from episodes or from other fandom stuff, fanfics and things like that. You can create music that's based on all those ideas, and it's just like a really deep well of creativity that you can draw upon. So
absolutely.
But it was really other people. It was like I was inspired by, God, who was some of the first ones I listened to. I'm trying to remember the names. It's been so long.
Eurobeat, Living, Tombstone.
Yeah, definitely Eurobeat, definitely Odyssey, and
Macan.
Macan, yeah, for sure. The early orchestral stuff. I'm Not a Clever Pony.
Of course.
Was one of the 1st ones. Yeah, he had some really good stuff.
Alex S?
Alex S, for sure. That was always fun. And then, when I did the first Everfree Northwest, I'd been listening to all these guys' music for like a year. And then at the con, I got to meet all these dudes. And I was like, what? I've been listening to your stuff and I'm running sound. How's it going? So it was like, connecting with people whose work that you admired and that inspired you. And now you're getting to work with them and stuff as
was
well
that
as
2013?
People. That was in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's even earlier than that. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, the very first
cool.
wave. It was part of that first and second wave of musicians. I don't even know how many waves have been now. Yeah.
And working on sound, you would, at least get to speak with each one of them too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, intimately working with guys on their setups and the whatever DJ setup or band setup they had, and trying to make them sound good and put on a good show, and awesome. That was a lot of fun to do that. And then the next year, I started performing, my own stuff, and then we did the Equestria tour in 2013. They asked me to join that tour, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so. That was a whole adventure unto itself.
I'm gonna get to that in a second, but
yeah, for sure.
Okay, coming back to Twilight Sparkle real quick, because you already gave us a glimpse of it, but I now only want to hear more. You worked on it for months, and to be honest, you can really hear it. It's such an emotional song. Just tell me more about it. How did you create it?
Like I said, I would just sit down with the guitar and play chord progressions and come up with something that sounded like a reflection of the feeling that I was getting from the episode or from the show or the general vibe of the thing. And it just kind of came natural to me for some of those. It's just simple chord progressions. And then the idea of using the samples, dialogue samples, as a way to introduce each character as the song progresses. As in the first episodes, Twilight meets each character, each of the other friends, one by one, and so in the song it kind of develops each sort of verse of the song. It's an instrumental, but there's still sort of that A-B verse chorus structure to it. Each part of the song introduces a new character, and then that has its own sonic character to it, whether it was Rarity or Rainbow Dash or Applejack. So, and then it builds up into the the bridge of the song, that is sort of the part where she's at the castle and they're fighting Nightmare Moon and all this, and it's just like really emotional and the peak of the episode. And so I put that in there, and then it resolves at the end with, you know, you're now the new, you know, princess of friendship here.
Yeah.
And so it has this kind of resolution of it's almost like in a classical music style way, where it resolves at the very end, and
right,
has this whole uplifting vibe to it. Yeah, but it was all about like trying to tell the first 2 episodes, to kind of condense that into a song, basically, is what that was.
I really like the way how you're putting that, because that's exactly the feeling that I have when I listen to that song in particular. But a lot of your songs, it's really like you feel you're listening to the song and you're just feeling the way that you felt when you first watched the opener of My Little Pony, introducing all the characters and then culminating in this just, you know, pure experience of joy. Basically, it's so good.
That was the goal. It was like, I also wanted to make something that I could listen to 10, 20 years from now and still be proud of, you know, and say, yeah, that's something I'm really proud of. And the quality of that music is something I can be proud of, you know, not just today as a trendy thing, but just, cause some music is just meme music. It's just for, you know, it's jokes. It's trying to be funny. And some music is a little more serious and a little more deep and emotional. And some music is just for dancing and making your body move up and down. You know, there's a lot of different, you know, uses for music. So.
It's all good. So Twilight Sparkle really has that. You just mentioned it, Secret of My Excess. The name is escaping. Heart of Fire. That's also It's really got that strong, you know, passion. There's just no other words to describe it.
Yeah, because it was like the whole buildup of Rarity and Spike's relationship had come to a point that after like 40-something episodes, we get to this point where he's like, I just have to tell you I love you. You know, she's like, I know. It's like, oh my God. I mean, I get a little chills now thinking about it. You know, it's just like it has that type of like impact, you know, on people who appreciate it, right?
The next song that I wanted to talk about is the Ballad of Applejack's Lost Roundup. This is you know, more country song. Is there anything?
So that one was that one was a lot of fun because it literally is like a narration of the story in like 4 minutes. You know, the whole episode is like basically narrated in like this format of like a fast rockabilly country song, and it's got this shuffle beat, like a train coming down the tracks, you know, and it's just one 4-chord progression the whole time that just kind of builds up and builds up and builds up, and just it's a funny way to tell the story, and to and then it has that emotional impact on the end where it's like it doesn't matter if you win, it's who you are beneath your skin, you know, and we all love you anyway. So it's just like that sort of just this amazing feel good kind of thing that the episode gives you. I wanted to give that back in the form of a song, you know, and that's what that song did. And I didn't realize that song was going to blow up the way it did, and that kind of cracks me up that people still are like commenting on that song now, like 12 years later. They're like, oh, I love this song. It reminds me of, you know, back in the day.
And just as a comment, speaking of emotional lines, I also really like the line, what was it again? 'Cause friendship is persistent. That's such a good. It hits me every time. And that's kind of what the whole episode is about too, right? They're just chasing after Applejack.
They don't give up on her. They're like, no, we got to figure out what's going on, and they you know, they keep hounding her like, why did you do what you did?
Yeah, right, and it's just like and to not care so much about whether you won or lost, you know, you're still our friend. We still love you either way.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also want to point out how the song itself is really good, but I've heard you play it in several videos playing it live, and you're always extending the last bit, and that just takes it up to 11.
We try to do a sing-along with the live crowds where we try to get everybody to sing in Cherry Chimichanga, come Glad Picker Bell.
That's so good.
Yeah, and let people play some solos and stuff like that, you know, and just kind of trade back and forth with the audience and the musicians on stage, and it just becomes this, you know, and everybody's dancing around in a circle and doing like, you know, sort of country style dancing and stuff. It's fun. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Here's another bit of a tangent, because the song as it's called on Bandcamp or on YouTube is Ballad of Applejack's Lost Roundup Derpy Mix. And your other songs are also CMC Mix and Dragon Mix. And I'm just wondering, if this is a mix, is there some original version that I've never heard?
Some of them, if they have like a certain, this is a dragon mix, that means it has the samples from the show. And then there's like the clean version that doesn't have the samples from the show, and it doesn't have all the dialogue. It's just the song pure and clean by itself.
Yeah.
And so that's what that is delineating between instrumental version or, with sample dialogue stuff. Because for one thing is like some people are not into My Little Pony, but they like my music. And so I wanted the music to be kind of accessible to more than just the Brony fandom.
Yeah.
And if you take out the, Pinkie Pie's voice out of the song, more people are going to want to listen to it, right?
I get it.
They'll be like, who are all these characters and stuff? And
you gotta explain it.
Then you have to explain it. Yeah, it's like,
it's like
watch the episode. But if you just hear the song, a lot of people are like, I'm not a Pony fan, but I like your music. And sometimes that's a really nice compliment too. But then I've had other people say, I liked you better before you were a brony. I'm like, oh, come on.
Hey, rude.
It goes both ways.
Or the stuff that came after it, right?
Yeah.
A couple of your songs were recorded with a band called the Cutie Marks. Could you tell us more about them?
Yeah, the Cutie Marks, we were all volunteers for Everfree Northwest back in 2012, 2013. And we decided to form a band. We became the house band to play like covers, like rock covers of the songs from the show and parodies that we had come up with, and play some of my music as well, some of my original songs. And so it was fun to, kind of play in a band again for the first time in like 15 years and put on some shows and do cons and stuff like that. And we did that for about 4 or 5 years until I moved from the Seattle area over to down to Portland, Oregon. And, things kind of changed there for me. But yeah, I still have a bunch of songs that we recorded that we never released.
Ooh.
And so I've been, thinking about, now that I'm done with this other album project, that maybe I'll do a Pony album to release all this stuff we did, all these cover songs. Well, they're more like parodies, they're Weird Al style parodies.
Oh.
Well, we'll take like, a Nirvana song and sing about like, Equestria Girls episodes or something like that. And so we had about 7, maybe 8, 9 songs that we did.
Wow.
Some of them that we didn't finish. And so, we tried to get back together again this year, but it just didn't happen. I tried to apply to Everfree Northwest, and I guess I got in too late because they were like, we're all full, sorry. But if, so that kind of let me down a little bit this year. But
you might still show up though.
Yeah, I might go for like a Saturday visit at the convention, but I'm not performing this year. So
okay, maybe another year though.
Yeah, and maybe another one in next year in Arizona. I might go do that again, but there's other places I would like to go. I'd love to go to like some of these other conventions in Texas and Ohio and different places and stuff too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the Cutie Marks for a second, are these people who have their own YouTube channel, made songs on their own, or?
No, not necessarily. Okay. They were just sort of like they played music. Ben is our keyboard player and saxophone, wind instrument player, and he's a music teacher, and so he's full-time music guy. And his wife is Jamie, and she is the bass player for the band. And then our friend Brandon is the drummer. And like I said, we were all just kind of met through the convention, just being on our own departments in the convention. I was in the music department, and so was Brandon. And Ben and Jamie did other departments. But we all just kind of clicked and started a band, and had a lot of fun doing it.
That's really cool. So
you might hear another album in the next year that has a bunch of Pony parodies on it. So look out for that.
That would be really
excited.
Cool.
And I was gonna say too. So like I also tried to see if there are like some pages still up, of the other band members, because you had like listed them in the description sometimes, and like I was gonna say, Maestro Scarso, he had like a SoundCloud still up and stuff like that, but his like YouTube channel doesn't have anything anymore and stuff
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Yeah, he
So
might have taken
it's,
that down. Yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's
No,
been, I think,
I was
since
just curious.
20. Yeah, I think 2016 was the last time we performed together. And then, like I said, this year we tried to get back together, but it didn't work out. My car broke down on the way, and things just didn't work out for me making that trip to Seattle. So, um, yeah, we
But
might try again. We might try again.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, super awesome that you're like, want to do this again. So it sounds, you're still excited about doing things like that, which is
Yeah, in
cool.
fact, they contacted me about
Oh,
November of last year, and like, hey, you want to put the band back together? I was like, heck yeah, man, let's do it.
Bring the
And it just
band
took a
back
long time to
together.
get things together, and then we thought about let's try and play the convention again this year and see if we can, because they had kids, and it's been a couple of years, so their kids are kind of grown up a little bit more now, and they just have more time to do it, I guess. So they reached out to me and said, hey, let's do this again. And so we still have that love for cartoon horses.
Oh yeah. Are
yeah,
there?
that's good to hear because there's a lot of people who have, left it by the wayside and decide and either do more other fandom songs or
Sure.
nothing at all. They just like disappear and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's honestly kind of nice, kind of refreshing to hear that somebody's still interested in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. That even after all the drama of the fandom um,
Hmm.
over the years,
And
and
even after the show ending and stuff like that.
yeah, the show and then Generation 5 came along, and it's like that was cool at
Mhm.
first. The movie was good in the first couple episodes, but I kind of lost interest in Generation 5. I like the characters. It's just the show just seemed a little bit more geared less towards a broad audience and more towards the 8-year-old and the younger crowd.
Hmm.
That's what I got from
Can
it.
agree.
It didn't have the same broad appeal that Generation 4 did.
And I guess also
Hmm.
the morals don't hit quite as hard, which is, in my opinion, the thing that is really driving your music, right?
Yeah, the storytelling and the emotional impact that you get from something like that. Um, on a darker side, I also like The Walking Dead, which ironically enough was started the exact same day as My Little Pony. They both started on October 10th, 2010. The first episode of The Walking Dead was also on that day. Years later,
No
I was a
way.
fan. I was a fan of The Walking Dead around 2016, 2017, and I was watching a lot of episodes. I made a song for that show too, and I never released it or anything. But it was like something like that, what had such an emotional impact on me that I was like, oh, I want to make a song about this. And it's a darker topic, but it's similar to where you're influenced by some form of content that influences you to make another form of content. And I think that's you know the idea of inspiration, passing on inspiration to other artists by creating something that will inspire them. You know what I mean? It's like the passing of the
Mhm.
torch.
Yeah.
I remember like it's funny because like you say you're a really huge fan and like the only interaction I've ever had with The Walking Dead or anything like that was just like Tumblr posts from way back in the day and people just like spamming stuff about like Dean or whatever his name is,
Yeah,
being all
yeah.
yeah, so that's funny. Did you do any collaboration? Did you do like I know that you did the with played songs and also created songs with the Cutie Marks band. Did you do
Hmm.
collaborations with any other musicians as well?
Not for any
Curious.
recorded projects, but I did like learn a lot of songs to perform live when we were playing
Hmm.
conventions and on the Equestria tour, BronyCon, and things like that. We all had to learn like 70 songs, because we would each have a
Oh wow.
set. And so I'm now the guitar player for another for Tarby or for Pony One Kenobi, or for Fenning or whoever was the act of that that time slot. You're the backup band for them. And so we all became each
Hmm.
other's backup bands, and we had to learn everybody's songs. And so by you get 10 guys that are playing sets, you got to learn 70 songs. Yeah, that was for me. That was the collaborations that I did back in the day, and that was a lot of fun getting to play other people's music. Who was some other people I worked with? Oh, Forever Free Brony performed with
Hmm.
him. Uh, but as far as recording projects, no, I've pretty much done all my stuff just on my own or just with the band, with the Cutie Marks.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are still a lot of artists that do similar things like at Every Northwest. I went last year and I'm actually going this year too. Um Whirlwind Drums. He does the
Hmm.
drums for a lot of the bands and stuff like
That's
that.
right.
And
Yeah.
DB
Yeah. Back in
Pony
the day,
played
it
bass
was
drums. So,
Jack.
yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was Automatic Jack. And he was the drummer
Yes,
for everybody back
definitely.
then. Yeah.
That's cool how he's passing the torch on
Mm-hmm.
to Warwood.
That's right.
Then what? Oh gosh, there's also one other thing I was gonna say, but I can't remember it. Oh well, I guess I'll. Oh, I was just gonna say, I was wondering about the collaborations too, because a big thing back in the day too was everybody remixing everybody else's songs and stuff like that.
Right.
So just I wondered about that thing too. Did you?
I
So,
never
but
really
did, I
got into
guess you.
that. I never did it like remixing other people's songs too much. I was just that wasn't really my gig. I was more into
Mhm.
creating something on my own that was maybe inspired by other people's stuff, but or had a reference to their music, but it wasn't like trying to make another vast Fluttershy's ass or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, another song that I wanted to bring up is Every Pony Loves My Rainbow. And this is one of
Oh,
your
yeah.
more particular or saucy songs. How did you come
Yeah.
up with this one?
Oh, well, part of the fandom is on Tumblr and E621 and all these different places where there's a lot of furry art and stuff and
Never heard of
more
it.
adult themed content. And I found a lot of that and I thought it was interesting and funny and sometimes kind of hot. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. What is all this? You read fanfics and you're like, all right, what are these ponies doing? Jeez, this is what this is about. And so it was like a sort of a poke at that part of the fandom. It was like just ribbing them, as a joke, kind of like a meme song. And the idea that using all those different samples to amplify the message, to be like, oh my God. And Fluttershy saying things like, oh, I don't mind. And Applejack saying, that's what all the fuss is about.
Yes.
And all these kind of, it's just like the idea of like, the whole clop culture of that comes out of that was kind of funny to me at the time. And so I put that song on the album, I put it on SoundCloud, but I kind of wanted it to be like an Easter egg kind of thing and not put it on YouTube. I'm not exactly sure what the reason was for that. I felt like maybe I'm embarrassed by this song and this is not the one I'm not as proud of this song as the other ones because it's kind of a meme song in a way. And
Yeah.
but then I played it live a couple of times, and
Oh, God. If there's
No, but
recordings of that, I would
changed
like
the
to see
words.
it.
I changed the words though. I didn't say "clop to the plot." I think I said, "Do you rock to the plot?" I think they had
Okay.
that one of the cons are like, and then I think the one con I played at, they didn't like it, and they're like, "Yeah, he's not coming back next year."
Oh, dear. Oh, my God. Yeah, as I said, if there's any recordings of that, of you playing it, I would love to listen to it.
Yeah, the only one that I remember that we actually recorded, they lost the video for it. Yeah,
Okay.
that was
That's unfortunate.
that was one of our better BabsCon shows back in 2014, I think, and yeah, the video didn't come out, the recording didn't come out for that one. So
Lost media.
yeah,
Yeah, that
lost
must have been
forever.
hilarious.
Yeah, because I
and
save it for
actually-
the last one. I would always save it for the last song of the set too. Be like, all right, here goes. This is for the Tumblr crowd.
If they're gonna kick you off, then at least you've already played everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And then we were talking a bit earlier, and with regards to well, I don't say quote lost media or something like that, but there in your Brony music the Brony music playlist that you have on your channel, there's one video that was privated, and I'm really big into archiving stuff and especially pony stuff, and so I was wondering if that there was back in 2021 YouTube privated all videos that were set as unlisted that had been uploaded before 2017, and I wonder if it had like maybe gotten caught in that or something like that.
That makes sense because I wouldn't have switched it. Yeah, I would have just had it unlisted, I think. And so if the YouTube automatically did that, then I didn't realize it. So
gotcha. Okay, but then what was the video?
oh, it was a promo video that we created for a live show that we were playing in Seattle at a club called the Vera Project, an all ages club, and we did like a fundraiser for Everfree Northwest, and to promote it, I made a little quick video showing each musician, featuring a little bit of our music and some live performance stuff, and just it was like a 1.5 minute long, basically commercial for a live show that we did. So it's got different people that are featured in it. So
Gotcha. Great. All right, and I also want to talk about a couple more songs that I especially am a fan of. For example, Flight Dream. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. It just every single time I listen to it, it is just like the most ultra comfy experience. It's just like you've literally, you put a blanket on yourself. You're reading your favorite book or something like that. You just feel like infused with joy. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. It's just such a great song. Like
Well, I'm glad that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really that's the vibe I wanted to create. Like the whole song is like getting a hug from Fluttershy, and then you get to go to sleep afterward.
Absolutely. Like there'll just be times where I'm driving out somewhere and I won't have like heard the song in, over, a year or something like that, or, a while. And it'll just start playing in my head, and then there's I don't know, is it Scootaloo that says "come on" in there, and then
in fact the whole song is, I mean, if I think about it, if I list, really remember back to when I was making that, I think the inspiration for that was Scootaloo and the idea that she could fly in her dreams. And that's kind of what the song is about. Yeah, because she can't really fly, that's like, and so that's kind of like what the vibe of that song came from. Is that she can
one
fly,
of my
but it's only
favorite
in her dreams.
I was gonna say one of my favorite ponies is Scootaloo. So while that just makes me love the song even more. I'll hear
it hits hard, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just like as I'm driving.
That's gonna hit different. That's gonna hit different now.
Dang. Oh, that's awesome. And then also want to talk about "Don't Forget." I love that song. Between the chord progressions and like how the bass kind of keeps on that same note throughout it, and and then the chorus where there's so much going on at the same time. I was like, I was like gushing about it to Ducks the other day. I was just like, bass guitars going all over the place, and with the two pan guitars really complementing each other and all that type of thing. That's at least one of my favorite songs of yours. It's just great.
Yeah, my favorite part is when the bridge comes in with the synthesizer part, and it's like
yes, exactly.
And, and then the whole band sort of follows, and it builds and builds and builds. Don't forget. It's a bit of a lullaby kind of melody on that song, but yeah, that was a fun one. That was all about Rainbow Dash and Daring Do, and their interesting relationship through those episodes, and especially that episode where Rainbow is just fangirling out the whole time and just like, I don't know if I can do this, and kind of doubting herself and whatnot. And so that's where that song came from, obviously. But yeah, that's a fun one, kind of a punk pop style. And I love playing that one live. That's a fun guitar part to play.
Yeah, such an earworm too. And then I also want to talk too about there was a song, and it looks like from at least Bandcamp, you didn't release it as on an album. You had specifically released it as a single, and that song is "Everything Has Changed." And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to your thoughts and how that song came about as well, because that's Dux has said to me, the lyrics, especially I mean, obviously I listen to songs for lyrics as well, but I guess I listen to songs for music, and then to get the lyrics later on. But he especially is how impactful the lyrics are. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. What were you gonna say?
Right. Yeah, no, that one, it was obviously it was after episode or season 3, which was a short season, and we all thought the show was going to end, and Twilight had basically died and got her wings and came back to life and was resurrected as whatever, Jesus Twilight at the time. And so it was like a big change in the character design, and like, is this show going to continue, and what's going to happen next? And so it was like this kind of down point for the whole fandom. Everybody was kind of like sad and crying about it and stuff. And that's the feeling that I had at the time, was like kind of watching your child grow up. I've never had kids, but I imagine if your child eventually grows up and moves on and becomes, successful in their own life, then it's like they're not your child anymore. They're, they've grown up. And that was kind of the vibe of the ending of season 3, the magical mystery cure, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And and so that really was very heartbreaking kind of thing at the time for the fandom, and so I wanted, again, the song to kind of reflect that from the episode. And it still makes me kind of a little weepy when I hear it now. You know.
Oh, I've
That
got
one was always
exactly
a
the
tough
same
one, yeah.
thing. Like,
I have to say, you know, going back to some of the first songs, that one of the tests for is this song good or is this song done yet was if I could sit back and listen to it, and if it still made me cry, then I knew it would have an emotional impact on other people, because I've already heard it 1,000 times by producing it and recording it. But if it still has that effect on me after all months and months of working on it, then it's bound to have an effect on other people. And you know, from what you guys are saying, it sounds like it still does. So
it's an
that
absolute
that makes me happy.
tearjerker.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
way that there was one line, that little magic unicorn I fell in love with. That's just it. It just oozes emotion. You keep
Yeah.
explaining how much you're like inspired by these emotions, and that's exactly how I've been hearing these songs and listening to them for years now, and it's so beautiful.
So, yeah, like I said, that then you know all the work that I put into them was worth it, and it worked. If you're having an emotional reaction to it, then it worked. So that makes me happy.
From all of the
So,
songs that you've made, which one is your favorite?
Let's see.
Pony and non-pony, by the way.
Oh, pony and non-pony. Okay, so favorite pony song I've made. Let me think. Treasy is one of my favorite ones. That was one I did around 2017. Song about tree hugger. That's a fun one. And
is Treasy
You can
like a name you gave her, or was that like a
I think
really
that was in the
early?
show. Yeah, they called her Treasy as a nickname.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
I must not have seen that episode in
yeah,
a
tree
while.
hugger, Treasy. Either the fandom gave her that name or it was in the show. I can't remember, but yeah, tree hugger, and or she can fly. You know, that's kind of that one stands the test of time for a lot of people. So that one for me is always a good one.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's hard to pick your favorite sometimes. You know,
I understand.
if I go back and listen to all the, you know, I did about 30 or so songs that I released from 2012 to, you know, 2018 or so, 2019. And yeah, each new song is always my favorite song, of course, you know.
Yeah,
Winsome
it's just like
Falls is,
automatic.
I really like playing Winsome Falls. That's just a fun one to play. Kind
Hmm.
of a similar vibe to the Ballad of Applejack last
Exactly.
Roundup, but, you know, completely different storyline and
I was,
stuff. And
I was gonna say about Winsome Falls. I remember like trying to find that song like after I had like heard it, and I was just like, oh, I remember the YouTube, like the background was ponies around a campfire, and
mhm.
that's the only thing I know about the song. And eventually, between searching for it and I don't know, I think Dux might have even sent it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's this one. This was so good.
Yeah, that was kind of the last one I did, I guess. And but yeah, God, that's a tough question. Non-pony songs. What's my favorite non-pony song? Um, Probably something off the recent album called "The Long Way." There's a song on there called "Remember '85." It's an instrumental, kind of slow jam. And there's a song called "Distant Memory." That's kind of the single from that album, and it's all about nostalgia. I actually performed that one at a con, at that Arizona con, the Pony Con Expo or Pony Expo in Phoenix, and yeah, people responded well to that song, even though it was non-pony. It was a song about nostalgia, and it sings about having a deja vu and remembering a time, you know, when you were younger and you felt like the same kind of sensation, and the chorus goes, "It makes me feel like it's 1985." And so, yeah, it was just like it's kind of fun dance pop, synth pop kind of thing. That's probably my favorite. Um,
1985 for a particular reason, or just because it sounded good and, you know, 80s
because it made
synthwave?
me, well, it made me the sensation, the deja vu that I was having when the song, like when the inspiration for the song happened. It was literally a deja vu I was having while walking through a field one day, and I felt like, God, this feels like I'm 12 years old again, and it's 1985. And I started singing this chorus. This makes me feel like it's 1985. And the song is kind of a Michael Jackson kind of Prince style kind of thing. And It's got kind of an 80s synth pop kind of vibe to it. So it all kind of came together really fast. And then now it's like the song people requested the most now.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, I got a lot of new stuff I'm working on too. I've been writing a lot of music since releasing that last album and that project for the Long Way. And yeah, I'll probably have another electronic music album this year, and then another Pony album, within hopefully a similar time frame. But you can only work on so many things at a time.
Yeah, so there's
Right, between work and everything else. Yeah, sorry. Go.
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
So yeah, it's a matter of scheduling, yeah, and kind of allocating time to work on a particular project and
I wanted
chip
to
away at it
ask.
like that.
Yeah, so sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've ever released any of your music on a physical medium, a CD.
No. I wanted to do that with the last project, with the Long Way. I was going to do CDs and cassettes, but I ran out of money on that project, so I wasn't
that's
able
too
to
bad.
finish that. But yeah, I fully designed album cover art and CD J card artwork and a booklet, like a 12-page booklet and all this stuff. And but then I had some car problems and life problems, and basically the album mastering cost a lot more than I thought it was going to cost. So it kind of ate into the budget, and I wasn't able to get CDs done. But I'm definitely have that in the plan, because I'm a big physical media
Cool.
guy. I think that's
Same.
we need to go back to that,
Yeah.
and that the streaming shit is ruining the industry basically.
It's good that it's so
I'm
accessible.
the
but,
exact same way.
I like Bandcamp. In fact, when I started selling music in 2012, Bandcamp has been a much better platform for artists and musicians than any streaming platform for the majority of people. So,
Right. And now that I'm thinking about it, Bandcamp kind of took over from MySpace, because MySpace used to be the big thing for bands, and then
Right.
when that kind of died off and Facebook, became big, and everybody gets migrated to Bandcamp and just kind of, and YouTube, and posting it to YouTube and kind of sharing things that way.
well, the great thing about Bandcamp is they're the most sort of like artist centric, to where they take the
Yes.
least amount of cut. Most places like Apple Music and other places, they'll take 30-20% of the music sales, while Bandcamp is like 15%. So it's, they take a smaller cut, and then they also do what they call Bandcamp Fridays, where they take a 0% cut like once a quarter. And they've been doing that since like 2020, which is kind of nice. So you can, make a little bit more money on certain days of the year if you can get your fans to show up. The problem is, like, today, people just don't really buy music. They buy streaming services, or they get it for free, or I'm even guilty of this. I can't remember the last time I bought an album or whatever. So it's just something that we need to go back to, kind of the older way of consuming media, games, movies, music, all this stuff, and go back to physical media. That way you actually own it and have it in your possession, whether it's on a hard drive or it's on a CD or whatever. I think it's better to own stuff.
Right. So that, if in case there's a contract that, that the company has a falling out with, you still have it for yourself. You can always
Exactly.
enjoy it.
Yeah, they can never take it away from you, and that's what streaming does
Right.
now. Is they're always taking away.
Yeah, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, and they don't pay very
Yeah.
much either, so it's kind of like not really worth it,
Right, exactly, at the end of the day. And so you had spoken before about Bronies for Good. Are they the people that made the Seeds of Kindness albums?
Yes.
Okay, it is. Okay, I don't know why, but I never, for some reason, made that connection. So, yeah, and it seemed that there was, you said they had approached you to make songs for it, and I have seen that you were on multiple different albums. How many albums did you contribute to for that?
I can't remember. At least 2, I
Okay.
think. Yeah. And
Okay, 'cause I
maybe
saw that,
3.
like,
Yeah.
I saw
'Cause
that
there was
you
other
had
projects,
definitely.
too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Then what product? Then talk about like what other projects you had like contributed to.
Yeah, so there was the Bronies for Good, Seeds of Kindness. I think I was on
Mhm.
like the first 2 of those, and then there was another one that was a Brony Can. In 2013, they did an album, and I submitted a song for that, and that was an orchestral piece as well. And yeah, those are, I think, the ones that I remember specifically. Oh, then there was the the movie that they did, the documentary they did, the Bronies, the unexpected adult fandom of My Little Pony. This documentary came out in like 2013. That talked about the whole fandom, and it was on Netflix, and they made, you know, a full production out of it and stuff. And so I had like they contacted me saying, yeah, we heard you make some good pony music, and we want to use your music in our movie, and can you send us some instrumental versions of your songs, and we'll, you know, credit you. And so it was me and a bunch of other bronies that were contacted to basically be the soundtrack for this Netflix documentary. And so that was kind of a fun thing to be a part of.
That's awesome, rather than like them farming out to some random ass person who has no idea anything about the fandom. They actually got
or using stock music or something.
Right. That's it.
So yeah, it was like, you know, hearing your own stuff, you know, hearing your music behind, you know, in this movie, in this film, is like, wow, that's kind of interesting. How deep I've gotten into this in just like 1 year, I'm now like in the epicenter of the brony fandom.
Yeah, right. That's
But I've always wondered, it always was a mystery to me. Well, who was it that told them to contact me? How did they find my stuff? And who knows? So I figured the show creators, maybe, because they were involved in making this documentary, they might have, you know, found my stuff somehow. But
I wonder.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. For sure. Now it seems like there's, you know, new stuff coming out all the time. I see the Ponies at Dawn releases, you know, every couple days. Or some, you know, the guys that I used to hang out with, listen to, Replacer, still making pony music. Fuzogs, looks like he's still putting stuff out.
He just released a new album. It's not pony, but it's really nice.
Right, yeah. So I still subscribe to a lot of guys' music and check out, you know, what people are doing these days, but it's not like the main focus that it was for a long time. You know, I've gone on and done other things, and, you know, these other projects that deal more with psychedelics and electronic music and shamanism and consciousness exploration and all this kind of stuff. So it's completely different world than My Little Pony. It's more like, you know, psytrance and techno and things that
Is it like kind of, you know, a spiritual-esque side to it as well? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm a big advocate for psychedelic medicines and things like that, and I've had a lot of experience with that over the years. And since being in Portland, that's kind of the epicenter for that type of thing here. And so there's a lot of, I guess you could call it, healing that's going on using psychedelic medicines and different sort of alternative modalities that come from ancient cultures and things that have been used for thousands of years that modern medicine tends to ignore or even illegalize in a lot of cases. So, and that's starting to come around the same way that the marijuana laws have changed over the last 10, 15 years, where half the country has cannabis now and the other half doesn't. Well, the same thing is going to happen with psychedelics in a few years. So I'm kind of a part of that kind of, you know, movement and advocacy for alternative therapies for people to deal with, you know, some of the things they've been through in life. Sometimes a psychedelic experience is the only thing that can save you from your own misery and inspire you to change your behavior in a way that makes for a better life, whether it's an addiction problem or depression or anxiety or a lot of different mental health issues can be addressed with therapy and psychedelic use. So some of my music has to do with that type of idea. So that's kind of what I've been working on the last couple of years.
Also the Treasy song, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, and she was arguably the stoner pony of the show. There was no hiding it, you know. She's like, "What's up, man?"
Of course.
And then the fandom takes that and runs with it, right? I mean, there's T-shirts with her getting with a bong on it, you know. so tree hugger with a bong. Yeah, so that's how the fandom runs with that kind of stuff, and so yeah, I think there's a line in there about like she takes in theogenic plants that'll let you see through time, and a theogenic plant is basically a plant that lets you connect with the idea of God. So that's a deep psychedelic experience, like the oneness of the universe and all this sort of hippie stuff, and so that's where that comes from, is, you know, the hippie culture, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I see.
But they were right about a lot of stuff. You know, if it weren't for the hippies, we wouldn't have saved the environment the way we did. So
That is true.
Back in the 70s, 1970s,
Right.
they were the inspiration for like the starting to clean up the environment in America, especially because it was pretty trashy in this country for a while, thanks to corporate greed and whatnot. But anyway,
You played a big role in the Equestria tour. So could you tell us what that was, how it happened, and if you have any particular interesting stories from that?
man, we could do a whole hour just on that. Jeez.
Oh,
Yeah, that started out. I was invited to go on this tour with I guess 9 other musicians and DJs. It was organized by the guy that started Everfree Northwest, who went by the name of Bajati, and he had organized basically this countrywide 25 city or more music festival tour, to where we would go across the country and play. Instead of people coming to the con to see the music, we would come to you, but we had to finance it in a certain way because it cost a lot of money to take a trip like that. So we did a 24-hour live stream in my apartment and had and did like fanfic readings and live performances and all this stuff. And it was Tarby and PonyDonn Kenobi and a bunch of other guys. They all collaborated together to put on this 24-hour live stream. We raised a bunch of money, like I think we did like $9,000 or $10,000, and used that to rent a van and some equipment and the sound guy that came with us. He was also a brony, and we just planned out this tour and started booking gigs across the country. And it was pretty ambitious at first. And then when we got out there and started driving and doing it, it was like, okay, no, we can do this. Because I'd been across the country plenty of times. I'm already 40 years old at this time. And so I was very experienced at travel and driving around the country. So, and for these guys, a lot of them, it was the first time. In fact, Replacer came up from New Zealand to go on tour with us and be a part of this thing. So he was, flew from halfway around the world. And so we rented a car. We rented a U-Haul trailer, and I drove my car. I have a 2005 Saturn Vue that just died last week. In fact, I got to buy a new car now because that car's dead. But yeah, it's gone now. But yeah, we took my car and towed a trailer with it and just drove around the country. We played, I think we played probably 12 or 13 shows plus BronyCon and Everfree Northwest. So actually, it was Everfree Northwest first, and then we went to California. We played in LA. That was cool. We played in Phoenix. That was hot. It was like 110 degrees at night in Phoenix.
Oh god.
Which is for ducks that would be about 42 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. We don't get these temperatures even at like
it was
summer.
super hot. It's like the south of Spain. But it was and then we went to Albuquerque. We drove to Houston. It was an exhausting tour. We did Jacksonville, Memphis, Nashville. We got a flat tire in Asheville, North Carolina. That was kind of a rough night. And it was a long 5-week-long journey where it was. So let me, if I can remember who all was on it without looking it up. So Silverhound, Fenning, Tarby, PonyDonn Kenobi. God, who else was with this? Automatic Jack, me, the sound guy, Shu, and tour manager, Pinky Boo, and
Replacer.
Bajati. And then Bajati also performed with us. And who else was with us? God, this was over 10 years ago. I'm trying to remember everyone's names. But yeah, it was a fun time, but it was also a very strenuous, grueling drive across the country for 5 weeks during the summer of 2013. And so we didn't get to play as many shows as we wanted. And we didn't, we ended up spending we spent a lot of money on that tour. We didn't make much money on the tour. But when we got back, it was like, hey, we just went on tour for My Little Pony. How crazy is that? And the whole time we were laughing about that. Just like we'd go to a gas station somewhere in Alabama and they'd see everybody dressed up like My Little Pony shirts. And, we got like makeup and fingernail polish and we're all kind of, half femme and stuff. A lot of gender bending going on even back then. And so it was kind of odd to like interact with normal people, and especially in the Southeast United States. And they would see us and be like, what the hell, y'all?
That's awesome. Respect.
Yeah, so we were out there just wearing our pony pride everywhere. And yeah, it was a good time. Then we played BronyCon in 20. Yeah, that was the 2013 BronyCon. That was a big show. And then we played Boston, and I think that was the last one. Well, we went to New York City. That was the first time I got to go to Manhattan, New York City. That was fun. And yeah, it was just kind of a wild trip because I love exploring. I love driving across the country. I've done it a bunch of times throughout my life. But for some of these guys, it was like their first time, and I would get so frustrated because I'd look in the back seat, and they're just on their phones or their tablets or their computers. They're literally making music, sitting in the car next to me, like making their next song they're going to put on YouTube, and I'm driving at midnight, and they were just more interested in their devices than they were looking out the window at how amazing the countryside is, or the desert, or the mountains, or wherever we were. I was like, hey, you guys, check this out. Look at this. And we'd stop at some places in national parks and things like that and go wander around. But they just weren't into it. I was like, man, what's up with these kids that just want to look at their phone and not look out the damn window, bro? Look where we are.
Yeah, look what you got right in front of you, as opposed to
Look at this canyon, dude. Yeah. So there was a lot of funny stuff that happened. Like that one of the cars ended up going to the Grand Canyon, but they got there at night, so they couldn't see it. It was like it was like completely dark. And what was another one? Oh, we had a party in Las Vegas, and I think Jack woke up like at 10 o'clock in the morning, like came out of a drunk blackout, and was just like, bro, where are we? And we've been just like drinking in Vegas all night long. And yeah, there's some wild shit that we did. We'd had a party in Galveston, and yeah, I was always trying to find weed and stuff, and it was just it was wild.
Oh man, yeah, that really does sound like one of the craziest experiences.
It was, yeah, because all this sometimes the venue would be like a rock club, like somewhere in a city, like LA or Phoenix, and then sometimes it was like a library at the Clark County Library in Las Vegas, or it was at a university in Florida, Jacksonville University, sort of outdoor arena thing. So it was all these different environments that we got to take our PA system and all our equipment and set up and play outside, or play in some, nasty club that everybody else plays. All the other bands that tour around the country, they all play in. I remember being in Boston and looking up on the wall and all the other band posters that are, bands that have played here in the past. And some of the bands I knew from the studio from 10 years earlier that I'd worked with in the studio. I was like, oh, these the Super Suckers or somebody, or Reverend Horton Heat, all these sort of punk rock and rockabilly bands. And I was like, oh, I know those dudes. So it was kind of fun to go around the country and still find some familiar, bands and faces and stuff.
But these audiences.
But yeah, that was a good time. Yeah. That was a really good time. But, it was kind of tough when we got back because we were all kind of burned out and worn out. And then it's like now instead of just post-con depression, it's like post-tour depression. Man, that was pretty rough.
But these audiences that you played for, then these were also just non-brony people, or were you still
No, they were mostly bronies. Yeah, they would do like a local meetup thing and invite everybody out to the club or wherever we were playing, and so they kind of knew. They were following us on Equestria Daily or whatever, and so it had a lot of promotion and press, and people following us on Twitter and whatnot. So they could come to the shows, and I think we even featured like local musicians, local brony musicians at different cities that we went to, and so depending on what city we were in, we'd have a guest DJ show up or whoever, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, it was very very fun time for the fandom.
There was also another thing I heard, and I would need you to confirm this, whether it's true or not, but I heard that there was supposed to be a documentary coming from this, and that just sort of never happened. Is that true?
Oh, from Equestria?
Yes.
Yeah, we get I think the camera disappeared during the tour at some point. From what I remember, I think somebody stole our camera, and so half the footage disappeared with that. The first half of the tour. I think that was in Houston, of course. My hometown city, we get robbed.
That's a real shame.
Yeah, so that was really kind of one of the big letdowns. Was like, all that the first half of the tour was basically lost footage.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And besides Equestria, you've also appeared at several other pony conventions. What are some of your most memorable experiences from that?
Definitely would be BronyCon and performing with the Equestria group on stage in front of like 5,000 bronies in a giant convention center. That was a big one. The first ever Free Northwest was pretty special because it was like the first time all of the musicians had got together. There's like 30 different acts that performed at the first ever Free, as well as Michelle Creeber and the Creeper family and Mando Pony and all these sort of, the first wave group of musicians. That was pretty, cool. And then getting to meet like the show creators, Daniel Ingram and, Andrea Lidman and all these different people. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Have you like talked to Ingram about music or some other VA or staff member?
Not specifically, but I did. I remember the first time he walked up to the soundboard when I was running sound and Michelle Creeper's performing, and I was like, "Here, man, check it out." I was like, he's like, "Hey, I'm Daniel Ingram." I was like, "Yeah, I know, I like your stuff." I was like, "I know who you are." And so he put on the headphones and was listening to like the internet mix. Right, we were broadcasting on live stream or whatever, and so he could hear what it sounded like. I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." And then a couple of years later, we did a thing where the Cutie Marks and I did like a little jam session for a group of kids. It was like for the 10 and under crowd. And so we did like a bunch of songs from the show with Daniel Ingram playing ukulele and me on guitar and somebody had a little drum, like a little hand drum. And so we just played for like a group of like, it was like a classroom group of kids, you know what I mean? Like 20 little 7-year-olds just really loving what we're doing. So that was good. We got some pictures from that. That was fun. Ooh. But yeah, I remember Daniel, I think was like, do you know this song? I'm like, bro, I know all your songs.
Just name one.
Yeah, how about This Day Aria? Let me play that on guitar for you real quick. But yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, there's so many times, that was like just the opportunity to perform on stage and entertain a group of kids or a group of fandom folks and play music with my friends or just running sound and making sure the sound works, in a conference room somewhere where they're doing a panel and just like sitting there listening to somebody else's panel. That's kind of part of the game too, when you're at a convention. It's not just music, but there's also, let's talk about how to draw ponies, or let's talk about, the psychological impact of Twilight Sparkle getting wings or whatever,
Yeah.
So there's all like the conventions are so multi-layered that it's like music is one aspect, but then you're exposed to all this other stuff. The vendors hall was always my favorite thing. I'd go and spend $300 at the vendors hall.
Oh God!
And come home with all these plushies and posters and the artwork, custom artwork, t-shirts for sure. I'm wearing one right now. And
nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like the movie. I mean, if I go back and think about the best parts of the show, the movie that they came out with, I guess in 2019, is that when the movie was?
2017.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah. The Equestria Girls series were fun. We used to go see those as a group in Seattle. Like 100 people would get together and go watch Equestria Girls in a movie theater. And the whole movie theater staff were like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. We did a lot of that. Yeah, there's so many. Like I could go on and on about cons and meetups and concerts and things. There's so many things.
So that's I'm glad that you've had so many fun, great experiences in the fandom and stuff like that. Because that's just great to hear too. Because I mean, I'm a bit of a latecomer to the fandom. I really only got into Pony like a couple of months before the show ended. So
yeah.
But I mean, it's had such a it's just been such a life-changing experience type of thing. It's super cool to to hear people talk about what it was like when I knew for years that I'm like, man, if I could get into this, I feel like it would just be I would be totally my shit, but I just didn't get it.
Yeah. No, I dove in right away. Yeah, it's funny how I didn't even hesitate when I first found it, and like I said, after between season 1 and 2. And it just like took over my life, and as well as millions of other people. And that's what made the fandom is everyone's addiction to cartoon ponies.
Right. Yeah, even now, yeah.
And we can all blame Sethisto for all this too, because if it weren't for Equestria Daily, that was like the center.
Yeah, it would not have spread. So
it's really kind of his fault.
So always point the blame at him.
And also thank you,
So,
Sithista, for doing what you did.
yes, the credit where credit is due.
For sure.
He has done a lot. I was gonna say too, you have been working on. You talked a little bit about some stuff that you've been making since you kind of last looks like Winsome Falls was the last Pony song you made. I think it was in 2017 I had seen, or at least released. And that you had made that commission album Long Way, and that it was a bit. You had been saying that there was like it had been performed in Second Life and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, it's basically a theatrical musical performance. That the album is the soundtrack to the theater show. So you can think of it like a virtual movie, in a way, like you go see a movie in a virtual world or a video game.
It's like that idea where there's a live performance on stage.
And there's these sort of visual magic tricks that can be performed in a virtual space to create staging and environments and sound and lights. And so I spent about 8 months putting together this visual show. I already had a lot of the music assembled. And it was a project someone commissioned. They came to me and said, hey, I want to hire you to do a rock opera here in Second Life. And I thought, okay, but it's not going to be rock and it's not going to be opera. It's going to be more like cyberpunk, electronic, psychedelic, futuristic theater show. That's what it's going to be. So, and then I wrote this story with these characters. I used Mid-Journey to design some of the characters and the sets and things like that, and had this whole futuristic kind of Blade Runner-esque storyline that I wrote. I designed the characters with Mid-Journey, and then I created those designs in Second Life. Like, so Mid-Journey would create all these variations on my prompt, describing my character, what I want him to look like, what the female android assistant is going to look like, and it produced all these great pieces of artwork for me because Mid-Journey does that. And then I took those designs and made 3D avatars that look like those, and then those are what we used as our actors on stage. And we had like DeLoreans and Cybertrucks and these sort of flying cars and stuff, very Blade Runner like. And so yeah, it was a fun show to put together and to perform and to write all the original music for and do all the artwork and concept design and production. It was a lot. It's the most intensive thing I've ever done, especially in the virtual space. And it was a pretty successful thing. Like hundreds of people came to see it. We did, I think, 7 or 8 performances of the show, and you can watch it now. I'll give you guys the link for the show that you can see. That was a screen capture recorded as we're performing it live. There's an audience of like 100 people sitting there listening, watching the show, and you can have the experience sort of like of going to a live virtual theater performance of this show. It's called The Long Way. Excuse me. Let me get a drink. Hold up. It's called The Long Way, a futuristic musical journey. And yeah, there's a full video of the whole show now that you can watch. But that's what that project was. And I'm thinking about writing a sequel to it. Some people have asked me, are you going to do another one? And I thought, yeah, we can take this even further and make like a sort of whole world out of it. I did sort of a world building, exercise with it, with character designs and stuff. And so I might do a sequel. Yeah, it might be like an ongoing series. But God, it was so stressful sometimes putting the show on itself that, it wasn't really like a musical performance, but it was like a virtual technical exercise. And so it wasn't a lot of fun for me. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of live musical playing, but it was a lot of like acting, puppeteering with your avatar, changing stages, changing lighting, streaming live video, streaming curated videos. And yeah,
I can only imagine because like in Second Life, I mean, I've been on it for a number of years, and like that game it's fucking jank, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and so
I can only imagine.
You're working with a system that barely is holding itself together, and to try to put on like a really intensive, graphically intensive, technical, dynamic, visual, theatrical show that's live with live streaming video, live set changes, live, everything's happening in real time in front of you. and it was complicated. You know, it took months of rehearsal. I had a cast of a couple of other friends that were, you know, helped me do the puppeteering and acting on stage. And when you watch it, you'll kind of be blown away by it. I think if you're a Second Lifer, you know what that world's about, you'll really appreciate it. So yeah, I'll send you the link for the whole show.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah, that project. Yeah, so now I have some merch that's tied to that too. I've got T-shirts and cups and posters and stuff. I got a whole my room now looks like a Hot Topic with all this sort of merchandise.
That's cool.
But so that's been the thing I've been working on. What's that?
I was gonna say, speaking of Hot Topic, they have actually started getting in new G4 stuff lately. Like
really?
They had like a backpack. I'll admit it. I bought one of they had a Princess Celestia shirt online, and like it just, I don't know why, it just spoke to me. It just like, I'm like, man, that goes hard as hell.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, a lot of my shirts got ruined. A lot of my pony I had about 25 pony shirts, and some of them got ruined, and so I had to basically get rid of them. And I've got like 2 left now. I'd love to get some more, but yeah, I always like having
there's still some left, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I have to check out Hot Topic for sure.
Yeah. And then there are also a couple other albums that you put out as well. Would you want to speak about those as well?
Yeah, in 2018, I put out Telepathic Alien Communication, which was based on a lot of psychedelic experiences I had personally in 2016. In 2015, when I was going through some shit in my life, I quit smoking cigarettes using psychedelic therapy, using psilocybin mushrooms. And that was a big turning point for me. And so as a way of being an advocate for that, I created all this music as a result of these experiences for me, and released an album that was based on that. It's all kind of psychedelic psytrance and down tempo, kind of weird instrumental electronic music.
It's cool. It's good.
So there's that album. Yeah. The kind of music that I listen to mostly these days is like synthwave, straight ahead, you know, techno, kind of classic stuff too. You know, I go back and listen to older electronic music from the 80s and 90s sometimes. But the thing I find myself leaning towards these days is like musicians like Com Truise, or some of the music that comes out on Electronic Gems playlist on YouTube. That's a lot of chill wave, synth wave, down tempo kind of stuff. That's very simple and kind of lo-fi sounding, and it's all very nostalgic. I think they call it hauntology. That's another word for, you know, nostalgic music. That stuff is really appealing to me these days, like just instrumental synthwave music and things like that. Not straight ahead like the Midnight or Gunship, that type of stuff, but that stuff is more like kind of like pop synthwave, right? Because it's vocals and it's got guitar solos and sax solos and stuff. It's the kind of shit you would hear on the radio. The stuff that I would be listening to these days would be more like just instrumental, weird, you know, independent artists and stuff.
Interesting. I've never heard of that specific genre before, but you know, just like reading a quick Google definition of it as well. It says, you know, ideas, you know, talking about, it says referring to the return or persistence of elements from the social or cultural past, as in the manner of a ghost. Yeah. And the present is haunted by lost futures type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a future that never came. I'm not a big fan of the hauntology terminology, but I just like vaporwave, synthwave, anything that makes it like, that sounds like it's from the future, but it came from the past at the same time. But it's happening now. It's got it's almost got timelessness to it. You know?
That's cool. Interesting.
Because a lot of it's inspired by like 80s sci-fi music, not just the pop music of the 80s and the early, you know, synthesizers and drum machines, but a lot of the movie soundtrack music that was out at the time, you know, Terminator music or John Carpenter movies or horror movies that had kind of what they would call a B-movie soundtrack. They couldn't afford an orchestra, so they hired one guy with a bunch of synthesizers to make the music for the movie. And so that became, you know, one of the inspirations for modern synthwave. And, you know, what people consider synthwave music today, which is different than techno, house, and trance, right? It's its own kind of category.
Right, exactly. Huh. Yeah, before, movie soundtracks, they turned to taking mostly pop songs from here and there. They
Right,
hired people to
yeah.
actually create stuff for it,
A lot of
Yeah.
license, yeah. In the
So,
'90s, it was all licensed, like songs you'd hear from Stone Temple Pilots or Pearl Jam or whatever. Yeah,
right, exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Movie
So I was
soundtracks were a big influence. Like I remember in the '90s, movie soundtracks were kind of the big thing, and there were things like the Mortal Kombat soundtrack or the Singles soundtrack or the Crow soundtrack. These kind of
right.
hipster movies or Gen X movies from the '90s, and the soundtracks for those were very influential. Sometimes more popular than the individual artists themselves. You haven't seen the movie, but you know the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Mhm. Just funny how things happen that way. And then also I was seeing that on if on your YouTube
Mhm.
profile, there's also a live tab, and there's quite a number of live sessions that you've done as well.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
like, so is it, you just like to perform live, or do or is it practice for stuff, or just
It's a little bit of
yeah.
both. Yeah, a lot of times it's just jam sessions or it's a performance that I'm doing for Second Life that I'm just also streaming through YouTube. So it's like you can
Oh,
listen to it or you can watch it and they can have a screen inside the virtual world to where the whole audience can see you. But the problem with that is now you are on two different platforms at the same time. And now you have two different chat rooms that you're dealing with and that gets
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
hard to keep up with. And yeah, I've been trying to get my video set up again lately, but with the recent computer upgrades with the Mac OS and stuff, it's kind of slowed my computer down. So when I used to
Uh,
be able to run a lot of video and OBS and cameras and stuff, now it's having a hard time running one camera. So I'm dealing with like the settings and everything on OBS and trying to get it to work right so that it doesn't just lag and, and turn into bad video that's out of sync with the audio and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I want to start doing live streams again, but it's just I'm having to get through some technical problems first.
mhm. Gotcha. Okay, but so we could potentially look forward to more.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Cool, great. And it's just kind of like it happens when it happens type of thing, like
Yeah,
no
whenever I feel
schedule.
like doing it. Yeah, it's the kind of thing where
Okay,
whenever I feel like doing it. It's not a regular scheduled thing.
okay, gotcha.
Okay, I think we're starting to almost approach the end here. So I wanted to ask what your future plans are, but we've already pretty broadly covered this in terms of future music, future conventions, live sessions, and stuff like that. I don't know if there's
Mhm.
anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, not really. Just like I said, I've got more music I'm working on. I've got some old stuff that we can release from the band, the Cutie Marks, and yeah, it's kind of like I said, I just finished up this other project a few months ago, so I'm on to the next one, and you know, and just trying to find the next thing to inspire me, I guess.
Yeah, it's awesome to, still have, that you're still around as well, still making stuff still out there. So many artists have like retired or moved on to different
Yeah,
things.
and they
So,
take their music
it's a,
down sometimes too. And people have
right.
told me, they're
Yep.
like, I'm glad you never took your music down, that you keep this up here and that you're not sort of like embarrassed about your pony history or whatever. And I'm like, no, never. I'm very proud of this stuff. And that's why I made it the way I made it, so that I could listen to it in 10, 15 years and be like, yeah, no, that's still good and not cringe or whatever. So yeah, that I'll
Right.
always try to keep it out there as long as I can. So
Awesome. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
So, where can we follow you and your music?
yeah, you can go to my website, dondevoremusic.com. And then there's links to my SoundCloud, my YouTube page, Bandcamp, all the things. So just yeah, straight from my website. I'll give you guys the link for that too. So
Awesome. Okay, and then the final question here. Fetlocks, do you prefer them shorn or unshorn?
well, since Generation 5, I have learned to appreciate unshorn fetlocks.
Unshorn fetlocks, awesome.
Unshorn, yeah.
Always need to ask
'Cause
that to
yeah,
people. Well,
yeah,
that
these are
rep.
important.
Oh,
These are
sorry.
very important questions. I appreciate you getting into fetlocks.
Right. The real important things, real nitty gritties here.
We're keeping a tally.
Mhm.
Well, that
Taking a
wraps
poll.
up all of the questions that we had. Thank you again for being here with us. Make sure to check out Don's socials and listen to his music if you haven't already. This is Dux, and we're signing out.
Thank you.
Thanks.